Welcome to Leaders Are Readers. This is your host, Doc Ant, and I am thrilled to have with you tonight to have with me Daniel van Zyl, our other host. How's it, Daniel?
I'm awesome. Great to be doing this book. We're almost finished, basically.
That's right. There we have it, the greatest miracle in the world. And man, it wasn't last week something exciting when we had Robert Hollis,
Hey,
and it was just go, 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 go. What an inspiring man he is. What a great mentor he
yeah,
is in terms of
yes.
how he has taken this book and literally distributed it to so many people, believing in its power and how it can really change the lives of people. Isn't that true?
That's 100% true. I mean, he was the guy who gave this book to me and told me to read it because he believed in me. And that's also the reason why I gave it to you, because I believed in you as well. And as we talked in that the recording of that you will see is it's important that we share this great message, because not everybody believes in them themselves these days. And the world is it's a interesting place, because they don't want you to believe in yourself. They don't want you to be the greatest miracle, and that's what all this is about.
Well, what you make me think of is I see this billboard of the person that's perfect with, they've been brushed, they've been, you know, whatever has been done to
Paintbrushes, all that stuff. Yeah.
paint brushes, but that's not really who they are. But yet
Yes.
we start and look at those billboards and start thinking, well, that's what we should be looking like. And that's why
Yes.
we feel that we're not good enough. And you're quite right. The
Yeah.
whole world is now on this page of I'm not good enough. So self-image really is becoming a problem. And how this book takes that thing by the throat and shakes it
Yeah.
because it ultimately helps you understand, but you are special. And there's no reason for you to actually have self-doubt. None
Yeah.
whatsoever.
It's the same as you say on that thing. When you take off the mask, do you still like that person that you see? Is that still the person that you are?
That's true. And that's a challenge that only your mirror can tell you, Daniel.
Yes.
My mirror can tell me. So
Yes.
for our listeners tonight, it's about authenticity. We want to be real. And we've been on this journey together. We were highly inspired by Robert Hollis last week. But tonight, it is chapter 10, the last chapter in
Yes.
the book. But there's a reason, because we actually left out chapter 9. But that will come in time to come, because we just want to take this entire book together in chapter 10, and then we will explain to you uh, what we're going to do with chapter 9. But for tonight, so how does chapter 10 start, Daniel?
You know those old age thing of when you're in a company, that year-end party.
Oh, man, I remember
We
when I was in retail, I remember those parties. They're heavy. They're heavy,
they
man.
heavy.
because
Knock
the,
on the head. The next day is the heavy part.
but the thing is, because you're so self-absorbed in terms of having to
Yes.
impress and actually put your best foot forward, and you don't want to disappoint the bosses. So
Yeah.
you actually don't want to be there now, especially if you're married and you're forced to be at the office party and your family is not allowed to be there. Number one is to sleep because you want your partner to be with you. And I remember for
Yeah.
many years having to go to these parties, and my family was at home and feeling, what am I doing here? But for the sake of the decorum and corporate governance, I had to
Yeah.
be there. Isn't that true that you just feel sometimes you feel forced to do certain things?
That's true. It's sort of like it's out of your way. It's just as we're talking right now. It was like, yeah, you need to put on the mask to fill that role.
Quite correctly. Well, we see that none the different with Og Mandino. Og Mandino is just looking at this like, you know, next year I'm not going to have one. It's just, and then the people come and they start convincing
Yeah.
him, and all of a sudden, and they've got one again, because what goes with it is drinking, and then people
Yes.
change character.
Yeah.
People who were actually placidly throughout the year, all of a sudden find reason to attack one another, etc., etc. So he really didn't feel like this office party, and he says it's just not his thing. But when he finds himself, he's there. But
Yeah.
at the bottom of page 105 in chapter 10, we find what he does as a great leader. It says he can just hear the music playing, and he says, I walk around, I pat shoulders, kissing cheeks, feeling like a house detective. I'm reassuring myself that everyone would make it home, and there's not going to be any violations. But I could just see this guy that is torn apart in terms of another Christmas party, and I know I'm going to be drinking, because it seems to me that when you drink too much, you can get to a point of feeling sorry for yourself and or
Yeah.
longing for things that you have not had for a while, and then all of a sudden those emotions come out, and that's not where Og wanted to be. He didn't want that feeling. But I love, Daniel, on the top of page 106. Just read that sentence, because this is what happens to all parties. It says,
Yeah. It says, finally, the wine ran out and the office emptied swiftly, leaving in its wake a collection of debris that would only be removed if I left a $20 bill for our cleaning man. It was clearly in the Christmas card propped up by Pat's desk where you wouldn't miss it.
and it's true. Everybody stays until the wine runs out, because
Yeah.
it's free. Because normally at the Christmas party,
Yes.
it's drink for free. If only they realized that is the problem, they should actually buy less liquor.
Yeah.
Because people will
Or
stay.
made it that or made it that the people buy the liquor.
Exactly. But anyway, so he just says, that's it now. It actually ran out. And then all of a sudden he found himself uh, with the last glass of wine in his hand, go to his office, and then it hits him. And it's like staring at the ceiling. Simon, Simon, where are you? And this entire journey we've seen this relationship between Simon Potter and Og Mandino has become so special. And you remember those days where they're sitting drinking a glass of sherry together. Now with the wine glass in his hand, he's like, Simon, Simon, where are you? What happened to you? Um, and it really is heavy on his mind. But surely, if you think of your own life, there comes a time when we do long for people, whether it's your dad that has passed away, whether it's an old
Yeah.
friendship, but we do. We're human beings.
Yes.
And don't you think we should allow ourselves to long for those people? It's okay, but not to
Yeah.
keep it to ourselves. We should actually
Yeah.
discuss it with other people.
Yeah, I also think it's like this. In this context, it's basically that year-end function where you reflect on the year gone by, what has happened, and we saw in the previous chapters is him looking for Simon. Simon's nowhere to be found. So it's basically, in my point of view, is looking back like, all the good he had with Simon, and now all of a sudden he's no more. He's not me available. He can't walk around off the street and go and have his sherry. And his friend,
And he feels
his
a bit
great
lost.
friend.
He feels a bit lost.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. What's
Okay.
next? Because it's a new year, the next or the following, and then what is basically also is thinking of him. This is the year past, and now how do I take it from here forward?
Yeah. But then we see a change of mood. We see that
Yeah,
Og grabs his phone and he dials Fred Fell. Fred Fell was the publisher of his previous book. And he's sort of like, how's it, Fred? They
yeah,
talk about the weather and what's it like there where you are? What's it like here in Chicago? It's snowing and etc. And he says, we've just had our Christmas party in the office. And the guy said, yeah, and you've had a few drinks and you got a little sentimental and you remembered your old publisher. I can just see,
yeah.
I can see how
I
real it
see
is.
that. Yeah. Is this now the time to phone me?
Exactly,
Why didn't you do earlier?
exactly. And then I'll get to the point. He said, tell me, what's it about? And he says, I'm ready to do another book.
Another book.
I
Yeah.
think this guy must have thought, what? Right after the
What?
Christmas party? Are you serious?
Are you
Yeah,
are you made a little bit tipsy or what? That you think about that now? You had a little bit too much.
exactly. And then he actually has got the surprise of saying, I'm not going to tell you. There's no ways I can explain it because obviously Fred is asking,
Yes.
what is the book about? No, I'm not going to tell you. I'll have to explain it. Now, I found that quite intriguing that he didn't want to give away the secret of what he's going to do
Yes.
because he felt the power of the secrecy in him having to wait for the content of that
Yeah.
envelope. And I think
Yeah. It's one of the rules.
that is something that we need to take to our own lives. Sometimes we want instant gratification. I think we're living in a microwave age where everybody wants everything yesterday. I mean,
Yeah.
like I alluded before, the microwave's on a 2-minute cycle, and the last 30 seconds, I'm like, come on,
Why
get
does it
there.
take so long?
That's right. And I think this is exactly where he was. And he says, I'm not going to tell you. Okay. And then at last you ask, and then take us to page 107 at the top. He says, does it have a title? And what is your answer?
It says the greatest miracle in the world.
So, what is the most natural thing to do? What's the miracle about? And what does he say?
He says, I really like it, but what's the miracle about? Don't ask.
Don't ask. I mean, I'm not going to give it away. Just don't ask.
Yeah,
Okay, man. And then he just went, okay, I know better than to push Og. Because if I push
yeah,
him, it won't be good.
yeah,
But then we see
yeah,
something unique about their relationships. And she says, do you want the contract? No worry. We'll get around it
yeah,
when we get there. Same terms before? Fine. I found that fascinating. That these two guys, they've been writing various books together. And he
yeah,
so trusts Og Mandino to know if he says your next book is ready and he says, what's it about? I'm not going to tell you. He trusts him and said, okay, I'll send you a contract without even knowing what the content of the book is.
yes.
Don't you think that that's a nice principle that sometimes we need to show trust in other people?
Trust, yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
how does it feel if somebody just walks up to you and says, I trust you. It's going to be fine.
Yeah,
Because I remember what Robert said in the previous interview saying, when he learned to trust himself, everything in his life changed because
yes,
he knew he can trust himself and therefore he can take the steps that he promised he would take. And I think that is
yeah.
absolutely so powerful. And then
It's
he came,
basically taking, yeah, it's basically taking your God-given power. You either give it to somebody else or
Mhm,
you accept it as it's your power to bestow on others.
correct,
You have got the power.
and call that the power of choice. You can
Yes, yes,
choose what you do. But
yeah,
yet, when we use that power, we need to use it wisely. Because remember, there can be an abuse of power. And I
yeah,
think in this world, that is often what people do, especially, and I speak to business leaders. Business leaders sometimes manipulate their people and abuse their people. And they sometimes bully their people and they actually don't even know they're doing it. But you see,
yeah,
they had a mentor to say, please reflect back with me. Are there things
yeah,
or ways that I handle communication, the way I do things that you think may be offensive to other people?
yeah,
If you allow yourself to be open to a soundboard, you might find that the person will
yeah,
just be honest with you and say, sometimes you're your own worst enemy. And I know
yeah,
sometimes I'm my own worst enemy, especially when I don't believe in myself. And that is
yeah,
absolutely not necessary because we are good enough. I am good enough. You are good enough, Daniel. And I
yeah.
think for our listeners tonight, I want them to type in there, I am good enough. Go for it.
We're all
Because
good
we
enough.
want to
Yeah.
know that you are good enough. We are good enough. Then
And why are we good enough? Because we are all the miracles.
that's it. And that's how you're going to find out how to apply this to our lives because we all are the greatest miracle in the world. So then we find about the date of the book. Did Og hesitate or did he know exactly when he wanted this book to be finished?
No, he said exactly on basically on the spot. This is when it's available, and it says make it January 31st. Then it says the date 1975.
So he knew exactly when he wanted. That was 12 months
Yes,
later. And he says,
yes,
is that it? Okay, she's considered done. What a relationship we have. I wonder how many other publishers contract for books like this without even knowing what they're buying. And that was just them conferring with each other. We really have a good relationship. And Daniel, it's like with you and me, there's no second guessing. I mean,
yeah,
you were my rag picker. You gave me this book. And because of that, there's a level of trust. And I trust you. And I trust that we can speak openly to each other and that there's a dual communication. It's not just you communicating to me or me to you, but we both are open to honest, concrete, objective communication.
yeah,
And I think that's part
yes,
of a relationship that we should actually help and underline for people.
yeah. There's also this funny thing that happened there when he said when it will be a published, and as you said there, where the publisher guy said, or what's his name,
Fred,
Mr. Fred said, yeah, there's other publishers, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we've got Fred says to Og, yeah, we've got a very nice relationship so that we can do this on the fly. And then when Og just goes, bah, names like 4 or 5 other publishers. So it's sort of like, yeah, you're unique, but you're not yet that unique. I found you for a reason. He sort
correct.
of jokes with it.
You're right. He actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other publishers. You just mentioned one
There's a
after the
few,
other.
yeah.
Okay. And this is, I love you. I love you. Oh, Merry Christmas. I love you too, Fred. No, just that endearment is necessary. But
Yeah.
those words, I love you.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you think of this as the end of the year, and I'm thinking of we should not have to wait until the end of the year to take time to tell somebody else that we love them. We should make
Yeah.
time. Maybe that's just a phone call away to phone someone else to say, hey, I just want to let you know I love you. What do you want? Nothing. I just want to tell you I love you. Because people are so used to being manipulated because the other person always wants something. You know, that good old thing, what's in it for me? But
Yeah.
love is free and love is there to give. And it's always to ensure that we love ourselves, actually, we love others, and we're grateful to our Creator that He loved us first. I mean, it's just one of
Yeah.
those things. I love
And
it.
just to add on to that is for maybe for some of you, love is a bit of a big, too big a word to use. Why don't just phone them and say, hey, listen, man, I just appreciate you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically exactly the same. So if love is too big a word for you to use the word appreciate. Hey, Doc Ann, appreciate you.
You know,
That's all you have to do.
if you think back of my late dad, remember, he comes from that era where the words "I love you" was like you
Yeah.
don't hear those words. But thinking back to hear, "I appreciate you, well done." You know, those are things that really, really, really can take you next level because we
Yeah.
all need recognition. Obviously, you mustn't be recognition hungry because then
Yeah.
you will be fall for every form of flattery. But
Yeah.
it's good to get that confirmation every time that you're good enough. Well done. Now we see old Og, and he's there, and he starts feeling this emptiness, this big emptiness, and he says, "I wish right now we'd be for another end of the year story." And he just sort of think about it, and again his mind goes into void. He's now got the contract, he's ready for it, but immediately his mind falls back to Simon, Simon, where are you? So
Yeah.
he's really, really missing his friend. Now, it's okay. It's not wrong to miss your buddies at times when you miss them. But what will you do about it? Will you sit and mope? Will you have a long face? Will you become Mr. or Mrs. Miserable to other people? Or will you contain yourself and just say, hey, you know, the world is there for everybody and there's something we should do about it?
Yes.
So, what were his sentiments on top of page 8? He literally is speaking to Simon as if he is there. What does he say to him?
Yes, I miss you. I miss you very much. Uh, and he was speaking aloud, and the wind and snow and the flakes. Remember that first day when I always think back on that first day he met Simon, and also like a snowy sort of like vibe. And this is what he remember. He basically takes back. Takes him back to that day. I believe that's taking him back is like, and he remembers all the good things that he had with Simon, and sort of like with a good friend, if you lose a good friend to whatever circumstances, it's always you always remember the good times or the striking memories where you first of all where you met and all the good times you had with him. And then he was like literally thinking, I was believe was thinking back on that good times. And you know what, now Simon's no more, and you know what's next, basically sort of like, as you said, that void, that emptiness he's feeling.
True.
So he's reminiscent on that,
I also think
and he felt alone.
I think the circumstances of this cold, the snow
Yes.
also helped. So we need to be aware that environment is stronger than will.
Yeah.
When we are sometimes in an environment where the situation is cold and it's dark and what have you, and we realize this is getting to us, well, we might have to do something about that because we all are human. We're human beings.
Yeah.
And yes, human beings can become human becomings if you plug
Yeah.
into what we're doing and become that other version of you that says, I'm not going to be negative. I am going to actually step out of it. But Og said to himself, okay, life goes on. You know, I still have some shopping to do. Let me just
Yeah.
force myself and to get out there. You take it from there. What happened then?
So basically he takes his car keys, or pull himself together and take his car keys, and then he goes down. And you know that thing is, he had that sudden urge of like, yeah, like another drink with Simon. And Simon immediately comes back to him. Is like, in his mind is like, damn, because he always had evenings when he could walk up to Simon's apartment, and then they would always mingle together and have a sherry. So I think that came immediately. It's like sort of a routine.
Correct.
Now he's like not in that routine again anymore because Simon isn't there. So I think he misses that routine.
And he wanted to knock on that number 21.
Yes,
Elder
again.
Simon, sit on that
Yeah.
couch, that'll see the books in the corner, have a sherry,
Yeah.
and just have this one discussion of the other discussion, filling each other because there's someone to talk to.
Wisdom, yeah. And I also think that was a good time for me. He enjoyed that as we've seen even in the previous chapters, he enjoyed the time spending with Simon, and they had a great bond. And now all of a sudden that was part of his routine, and now all of a sudden that's out of his routine. So that's why I think he's reminiscent about that.
Well, it brings to mind for me, if you had the opportunity to be at a meal with any influencer, anyone,
Yes.
who would you choose? And what are the two questions that you will ask that person? Because the thing is,
Yeah.
you can go and meet with a person like that and just sit and listen, or you can go prepared and say, I want to ask them this and that, so that you can establish rapport, so that you can grow. Because the thing is, it's a two-way street. I said that earlier
Yes.
in tonight as well. And just think it through. I mean, Daniel, without a shadow of a doubt, I know if you had the opportunity, you want to go sit with your mentor, Robert Hollis. It's not
Yes.
even a discussion. I know. But I have to also push you a little bit and say, beside Robert Hollis, who else would you like to go and sit in? Whose table would you like to go sit and say, that will be a very, very interesting evening or lunch meal? Have you thought that through?
Yeah, if there's one person, then it's probably come to mind is Elon Musk, because he's obviously South African, so I know he would understand the lingua as well because he's
Correct.
cut from the same cloth, if I put it that way. But yeah, that's a one person because he also went from nothing to where he is today. So it would be interesting to ask him, listen, yeah, what's the challenges you went through? Because these guys, it didn't come overnight. This was a process of getting there.
Correct. I bet you if I mention the name of a person I would like to sit with, you won't even know him. I would like to sit with Bob Buford. Bob Buford wrote the book Halftime. That book changed my life. I'd so like to look him in the eyes and say to him, Bob, I want to thank you that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And what that brings to mind is just for us to know that there are people in your life that we are grateful for. And we need to find ways of thanking them even in their absence. How about just an email or just a text or somebody, an indirect message? But we need to sometimes take the time to thank somebody else for who they are and who they've been in our lives. Isn't that true?
That's 100% true, yeah.
Back to Og Mandino. So he turns his car, he shines his lights.
Out of the parking lot, and yeah, interesting thing he saw, and we had a discussion the other day on that one. You said something and I said something else, so this is going to be interesting. So I'll take it from here as like when he drives out of the parking lot, obviously there's the car's beams, high beams, I don't know if it's a high beams or not, shined on the apartment where Simon was living. And you know what he saw on the balcony?
He saw
The
that red glass geranium.
Yeah.
Now, and it ends like that. Like what? He saw it. He saw it. And the thing is, he was so embedded in terms of his experiences that he's had that he could see it again. Now, that to me is like reliving something, and you are able to see it, but in your spiritual eye, because it's so real to him. We remember the previous chapters, we want to knock over the door, but where's Simon? Where's Simon? And this lady with the baby said to him, are you smoking? What's wrong with you? But it was part of his life and was reality to him because he was there. And we had to work out, how did this happen? Now he ends off.
Yeah, how does it fit in together?
He sees it again. For me, that's the reality of that nothing is impossible, but everything is him possible.
Yeah.
I'll end with
Wow.
I'll end it.
Yo, well, that's powerful. And you know, the sad part is this way the book ends.
That's where it
Literally.
ends. That's where it ends. So I cannot wait for us to look at the actual content of chapter
Yeah.
9, which is called the God's Memorandum, the content of that envelope. And Og Mandino decided by writing this book, he wants the entire world to know about the power of this book, of the God Memorandum. And I can tell
Yeah.
you that I know it so well by now, Daniel, and I can say unashamedly, even when I go for my morning jog, I go through the book and I start with law number 1. I start then law number 2, law number 3, law number 4, and I actually repeat the information. And it's a conversation between me
Yes.
and my creator because it's become part of who I am. It's bolsters my faith, it's bolsters my belief in myself, and it literally has given me constructive ways to spend my meditation time.
Yes.
I so
Yes.
love it. So I can't wait to share with the people as we get into the future in terms of going through chapter 9. So,
Yeah,
Daniel,
we basically peeled off all the layers now to get to the core. So the next is focus on what's the core of the book. What makes this book a miracle? What is the miracle? How to
100,
create, how to start believing in you are the miracle. What's the core on that? And I think that's so befitting to end us off tonight. Is like, come, we'll show you the core of the book.
and we're going to do it in such a way that not only will we discuss it, but you'll be able to listen to the book, listen to a section of it, and then we will discuss it so that you can become part and parcel of this whole
Yeah.
process. So when Daniel and I are back next, well, you will be exposed to chapter 9, the God Memorandum. I can't wait to be sharing that with you.
Neither can I.
Don't miss it. So, Daniel, what is your takeaway about tonight? Your last words.
You know, everything has a year end, and it's good to sometimes just stop. Doesn't matter if it's the end of the year or in the middle somewhere in here, just to stop sometimes and just reflect. This is the year past. What am I going to do in the future or coming? And it's always good to reflect on the past and say, well, this is what I've learned. This is the lessons that's come into my life. Have I put, and then ask yourself the question, have I put it into practice? Because reading a book and putting the message in your mind is one thing, but acting and doing what it says is a totally different. It's a totally different thing. So that's what I've learned is like everything has a year end. So you must find yourself sometimes just reflect on what you've done before.
What a beautiful way to end it from yourself, Daniel, because for me, it's about seasons.
Yeah,
Like you say, there's a
yeah,
year end. For me, it's about seasons. If you come out of your winter where it was cold, remember there's spring. And spring is where it
yeah,
lifts you up. And it takes you into that summer where you just blossom again. But
yeah,
remember, following summer, there will be autumn again. Because
yeah,
life will deal you the autumns that will take you into winter again. There's seasons, but when you get to the point of reflecting on where you are, make
yeah,
that season count, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
See you next time, and we will be doing God's Memorandum. So cheers from me.